Good morning, everyone. It's January the 26th, 2025. I'm going to start today with a comment going back on with Julie, Survival on the Streets. And it was a very interesting comment from someone. So I'm going to start with that today. And her comment was, inhuman, bad to worse, and blankets need to be washed. Where to go? No dollars. God bless you. Now, my response to it was, it shows a little help can go a long way. Yes, we need the dollars. However, sometimes it does not always take dollars, but a little kindness and just plain caring can go a long way. And this is one of the things that I've always based my life on, is what can we do if we don't have the dollars? Caring. Caring has always been something that's been very much part of my life. So I just want to explain a little bit more of what goes on the streets. I felt terrible, like I said, about that young man who Julie knew too, who died on the streets a couple of weeks back there. And it was horrible in the fact too that he died on a main street. Like, he could have been seen. And it was one of our major main streets in downtown that he was huddled up in the doorway, so he should have been seen easily. And I mean, there's always delivery people sometimes out overnight, and plus it was only about 6 blocks from our main police station, so was there police officers not going by at the time on the main street, which they use all the time? So this was not a side street at all that he was found dead on at 6 o'clock in the morning. And I wanted to bring up another fact. I've talked about my first husband, the police officer, and the young dead man that we found in a doorway. And this was back in the 1970s, and policing back in those days was quite different from what it is today. And I wanted to sort of put a good news story of, not only did we find one person dead, this is how things were done overnight. The officers, because there was the only car available would have been for the sergeant at that time. So police officers would have been walking the beat at that time. The old gray coats they were freezing. They may have been heavy, they looked warm, but most of the time when you were out in the extreme cold, you had to wear at least two sets of long johns to keep warm, and warm boots and thermal socks. You really had to bundle up. And one night, I remember bundling up with him, with my ex-husband at the time, and it was a very interesting evening. It was really cold. We were well bundled up, both of us, for the weather. And one of the things that he did, because as an officer walking the beat without a car, he would have to he'd check up back alleys. Now, there's a lot of back alleys between stores and things, so he would have a flashlight, so he would often just get me to stay at the front, and he'd go and check the back alley out because it was so cold. He was afraid one of the drunks had fallen asleep. And sure enough, one night there was a drunk, and he had fallen asleep. He got him awake and realized just how cold he was, and at that point, we were able to flag down a passenger car, someone who was driving just at that time in the middle of the night, and we got him into some warmth back to the hospital. And it was a good thing, because he was just starting to get severe frostbite at that point. And if he hadn't have been spotted, he would have been dead in the morning, I'm sure. So we were able to save someone that night. And like I said, I was lucky I was able to see a passerby and flag them down while my ex was trying to deal with him. So we didn't have like the vans going around or the outreach workers that we have today at all. And it was very difficult to do things back in those days. We didn't have overnight stores or coffee shops. Sometimes it would stay open 24/7 for the officers to get warm. In some cases, I remember that one night, another night, just going on the beat with him. And the way we got warm was because some of the officers live very close to the police station, so they would often walk to the police station in uniform. And we as they lived by. It was much easier than driving the car. So I remember one night even going in, one of the police officers' wives, when they were on that particular shift overnight, she'd stay awake, and the officers would go in just to get a quick cup of hot coffee, and she'd have coffee ready for them at that point. So it was a really, really interesting way. We had to improvise in many different ways on how we did things back in those days. And then plus the fact, I mean, today, on the cars, we have those spotlights on the side of the police cars where we could actually look down an alley with a spotlight. Rather than forget about looking for the criminals in the cold, we might be able to spot someone lying in the snow that might need some help as well. And we have cars today, where we did not have cars back then. So we had to do a lot of improvising back in those days on how to do things. And thinking back on that, it's great that we have the outreach program, the cars and the vans, and they had the clothes and things that I've been showing you on the clips. Well, we didn't have any of that back then. But sometimes I'm thinking maybe it's not enough. I always think, well, what did we have in the past? Is there something that we could redo? Well, my way of thinking of it today is when it gets extreme cold like that, perhaps what we need to do is get volunteer teams to go out at night, and volunteers, say, around the shelters where they are, like they do. It's amazing because we complained enough with all the garbage that was around the shelters and in our area, and that the shelters got this block program together where the people from the shelters would get paid a little bit of money or gift certificates or whatever to go out and clean up the garbage. Well, why can they not do something like that? Get volunteers to go out, dress up really nice and warm, go 2 or 3 blocks around the shelter and make sure that there's nobody out there, go up the back alleys and that. And there's many different ways we can do it, but that was the old way that we did it. And, you know, the fact is, well, maybe we won't find anybody that night. Well, that is a win-win in itself, because that's a victory. Nobody died that night. But I think we have to look at everything on the table again, go back maybe to some of the older ways of doing things. And it's horrible to think of people dying alone, freezing to death out on our streets when there's no reason to, when we could have people with radios, or of course with our phones today, they can call in to an outreach van. Look, we've got someone down at this location. This is where we are. It would make it a lot easier for people. And then sometimes if they do not want to go in to the shelter and that, at least we still have a location and we can still tell somebody, there's somebody down here. Please check on them overnight. So it's another way that we can do this. And I also I've put up another video as well after this one, simply on how Montreal does their checks at night. And they have a nice warm van that goes around picking them up. So, but it's not a van even, it's actually a small bus. And they're finding this helpful as well, either taking them to the shelter or at least letting them have a place to warm up, maybe a small bus on top of it. That might be another way, rather than just have, they could transfer them from the bus to the van to get them to a shelter if need be. There's many, many different ways that we can do it. And I know everything always costs the darn dollars. That's the big problem. And the manpower. And then I look at it and I think, oh, how much is a homeless person's life worth? And I'm thinking, well, if it's that cold outside, I would think that if it was a 3-year-old toddler that had got lost and out in that kind of freezing cold in the middle of the night, I think we would have a lineup of volunteers looking for that child as quickly as possible. And hopefully we'd get that child back safely to his or her parents at that point. So there's a lot of things that we need to think about how do we take care of one another. And it's just an old-fashioned way of doing things. It's not always that bad. But like I said, volunteering is one of the best things that you can do, and I'm going to put something up later on volunteering as well. So I shall talk with everybody again soon. Just another one of my thoughts. Everyone take care. Have a great day. Be safe, and we'll talk soon. Bye-bye.